In late August of 2011, a tropical wave off the coast of Africa caused a disturbance, moved west, and became Tropical Storm Irene within a few days. The National Hurricane Center predicted that the storm would graze the northern shores of the Dominican Republic and Cuba, bury the Bahamas, and make landfall on eastern Florida on the 26th. With hurricanes, you need warm water to support convection, which is the upward atmospheric motion required to transport moisture, and by mid-August, the temperatures were already very high. You also need minimal wind shear, which is the difference in wind direction and speed with height, and if you have too much shear, you can actually blow the tops off of thunderstorms, but there wasn't nearly enough shear to kill Irene. It was also a massive storm. Hurricane force winds extended over 100 miles away from its center. Everything was coming together to create this Category 4 superstorm with winds in excess of 130 miles an hour. In fact, it had already registered as a Category 3 when it hit the Bahamas. And as it left the Bahamas, riding the coast up towards Florida and Georgia, there was plenty of warm water and minimal wind shear for it to keep strengthening. But it didn't. It skirted up the East Coast and made landfall on North Carolina as a Category 1 storm with maximum wind speeds of 115 miles an hour. An area of dry air over the eastern US interacted with the hurricane and prevented it from becoming the Category 4 it was supposed to be. It still caused a lot of damage though. Beaufort County in North Carolina reported 15.5 inches of rain throughout the duration of the storm. Extensive flooding was also observed all the way through Vermont. It's an inherently good thing that the storm wasn't as apocalyptic as the media made it out to be. But people were very vocal about that.
What's been your experience?
A big disappointment.
I don't think it was much of anything.
Yeah?
It was all very well overdone.
Now I realize the whole thing is just media hype to get us all upset and anxious, and it just feeds into the American way of being paranoid and fearful.
We are just thinking it's going to be a big, dangerous flood situation.
Brian, just to reiterate, though, you think for the Chesapeake Bay, the surge issues aren't going to be as bad as maybe earlier forecast?
What?
The ability to understand how the public perceives information that's presented to them is just as vital for a meteorologist to know as the weather itself. They're taking thousands of parameters over thousands of miles, plugging them into numerical models, analyzing the outputs, and condensing the information into easily digestible content for the average person. The choice of words used, or in this case the amount of time spent talking about a subject, can distort how a person perceives that information as significant or insignificant. When you look back at the unimpressed people in the wake of Irene, many of them mentioned the nonstop news coverage that it received that week.
Now to the debate on whether the storm measured up to all of the coverage.
This has the makings of just the hurricane of our lifetime.
Expected to gain that much more power?
Oh, crazy powerful.
What I'd like to see is the traffic, no shortage of incredibly, I'll bite my tongue, people who have been coming out.
My wife made me go through the emergency kit with her, and
yes.
I'll admit I was being a little bit of a bad boy and didn't pay attention.
It's been getting worse every single minute, even the past 20 minutes that I've been out here.
Never seen anything like it, and I was talking to a resident that was around the corner, and he told me that he's been here for 25 years and never seen anything like it either.
Some are questioning whether this was overreaction.
If there's a bear outside your door and I see it, and I don't say anything to you, I'm irresponsible. Doesn't mean the bear's going to get in there and get you, but you should need to know that it's there.
The sheer size of that storm, and the fact that it was going to hit New York City, made it the subject of pretty much every news station around the country, and I do believe that if it didn't hit New York City, we wouldn't even be having this conversation today. But at the same time, from a meteorological perspective, if you have a giant hurricane 100 miles across, that has 75-mile-an-hour winds, 10 inches of rain across the board, and it's hitting an area that doesn't usually get hurricanes, you gotta warn the people somehow. Wouldn't it be great if we had another storm to compare Irene to, say one that hits New York City maybe like 14 months later?
The East Coast is being pummeled with the power of a record-breaking superstorm.
Oh my God, it's washing everything away!
90-mile-per-hour winds, driving rain, record-breaking high tides, and rough surf lashed the coastline as the storm made landfall in southern New Jersey.
Huge waves crashing up and over. Did you see that one? Pushing ocean water. The storm is on top of us right now.
It was a dangerous situation to have the public be skeptical about hurricanes in the wake of Sandy, and in this case, the storm did deliver. It took out New York's subway system and left most of the city in complete darkness for days. So there is a big public consequence when meteorologists get things wrong. But if you look at the data, a lot of it lies in public perception. They absolutely get things wrong, quite often, but not in the ways that people tend to think. A big thing that I see and hear constantly are people talking about the percent chance of rain, for instance. They'll go to their weather app, click on the hourly section, and look at the percent chance of rain for that hour. And logically, you think that the highest percent chance of rain corresponds to the hour when it's most likely to rain. And they're correct, but a 50% chance of rain doesn't mean a 1 in 2 chance of you looking outside and seeing raindrops. According to Peachtree City NWS office, the probability of precipitation is defined as an equation, confidence multiplied by area. Confidence is defined as the percent certainty that rain will occur within the forecast area, and area is the percentage of the forecast area that precipitation could occur in. It's confusing. Let's break it down. We'll look at Cleveland's forecast area for an example. Let's say that the southern half of the area could see rain this afternoon, and there's an 80% chance that the rain will occur. We get 80% multiplied by 50%, which is 40% chance of rain for the whole area. The issue is that this doesn't work all the time, especially with big systems. If you have a tropical storm that's going to graze a forecast area on the western side, then the eastern half has a much higher chance of not getting rain than the western half. So you can't just blanket statement everything. And every weather app has a slightly different way of calculating the percent chance of rain, even though the National Weather Service is there to provide forecasting continuity. It's complicated. So what can you do to combat that uncertainty? Well, you can use every tool available to you at your disposal in your favorite weather app. Look at the radar to see where the rain has been in the past and how fast it's moving. Look at a surface map to see where fronts are. Read all the warnings and advisories in your area. Visit the Storm Prediction Center and read their daily convective outlooks. Because sometimes meteorologists can't be certain whether something is going to happen or not happen, and you can't convey uncertainty through little percentage indicators and little weather icons. They're too definitive. The less people that trust meteorologists, the more people will be unprepared, and the more casualties we will have when disaster actually strikes. So be prepared. If you want to learn more about forecasting and meteorology in general, check out the links in the description below. I'm a huge fan of the Storm Prediction Center, Hurricane Prediction Center. I got a lot of stuff down there for you. You're going to love it. Peace.